Okay, hi Chess. Thanks so much for joining with us today. For those of us who don't know, can you tell us a bit about dRISK and what you do?
Yes, by all means. And thanks, by the way, Grace. Uh, dRISK are a training, test, and validation company for autonomous vehicles. So, up until now, AV companies have been primarily kind of owning the entire process themselves. But there's kind of a natural breakdown that the industry is moving towards, where AV companies realize they need to test and validate using third party out of sample data. dRISK have been already doing this for years. We have been aggregating the largest and most heterogeneous database of edge cases that we put into our knowledge graph of risk, kind of a record of everything that can go wrong in the real world, especially on the road. And then we can test autonomous vehicles against it, primarily in simulation, but also using a number of real life data sources. And we're going to have some pretty cool stuff on that coming out soon. And then AV developers used to get to do cool stuff like interact with clouds of data dynamically to see where their failure modes are inside of some special software that we have. And ultimately, it's leading to AVs that are much, much more performant than anything we've ever seen before.
Great. And what do you think is the biggest barrier to the advancement of AVs in the mobility industry? And why do you think some people are so hesitant to be using them?
So we do have autonomous vehicle deployments here in Southern California. They happen in Central California, a little bit here in the Southern California region in Arizona. But the thing is that they happen in these very, very limited settings. It takes a long time for the safety driver to even get out of the vehicle. And even then, the vehicles are very slow, and they're not the kind of thing that you would choose as a replacement for an Uber, say, for example. The reason for that is because they don't really have any common sense. They can't handle edge cases when weird things happen in the world. Like just now, we've got about a bunch of parrots that we didn't expect talking into our recording, right? The real world creeps in, and um, and if the AV isn't prepared to handle it, then you get essentially a robotic vehicle with no common sense and weird behavior happens. And all it takes is one odd thing, one crash where the autonomous vehicle doesn't recognize a segmented bus, or where it mistakes a dropped power line, misses a dropped power line and drives straight past it. All it takes is one of those to happen for a lot of people to lose trust in the autonomous vehicle. Besides that, they need to work with much, much cheaper sensors than they have right now in order to be anything near as cheap as an Uber, much less expensive than an Uber, which is where they need to get to. So what what we are doing in the CCAV community in the UK, which is why dRISK has got offices in London as well as here in Southern California, outside the Silicon Valley echo chamber, is retraining autonomous vehicles to have something like that common sense. And when we have them, we're going to see a huge wave going over the entire planet where you realize you've got these bomb-proof, totally safe robot drivers that improve the roadways and are infinitely preferable to having a fallible person driving. We're just not quite there yet because the AI hasn't been trained to handle edge cases.
And how are you using AI to train the AVs to recognize and respond high risk events?
Well, the AIs are in the AVs, of course, but right now they're kind of like, well, they're limited AIs. What we're doing is retraining the AIs in the AVs, and we use AI to retrain the AIs. So our company, we are making a massive canvas, a landscape of all of the edge cases that can go wrong, all the things that can go wrong on the road. And we use a number of AI techniques in order to create that landscape. So we use generative techniques in order to create the scenarios, but then we use a number of AI related techniques to make sure they're realistic, just like the kind that we would get from real life. And so we use a lot of AI in looking at real life data and coding it into scenario space and making it something that an AV can be tested on.
Amazing. And what have you got coming up in the next 12 to 18 months at dRISK?
We have been primarily working with very high level AV developers, kind of level 4 or 5 AV developers that are making the next generation of something like this AV with proper common sense and totally bomb proof safety. Those are our current customers, but we are now branching out our customer base into OEMs who are going to be releasing these, what people call level 3 vehicles that are not meant to drive everywhere on their own, but are meant to totally let take your hands off the wheel, eyes off the road, hands off the wheel, so that you can say work while in the car on the way to work or the way to the school run. those need to be highly functional as well, and they can take great advantage of this AI retraining technology that we've developed. And we think again, it's going to be part of a wave of much safer ADAS, ALKS, ADS systems that in a few years we won't even recognize what the driving environment used to be like.
Oh, that's very exciting stuff. What can we expect to see from dRISK at Move?
You can expect to see your mind blown. Some of it's going to be with a bunch of procedural details, things that you need to actually have in place in order to have a proper level 3 plus ADAS, ALKS system, data requirements, for example. Sounds dry, but it's actually going to be one of the most exciting talks at Move UK. We are also going to be showing some of the core engineering behind this, and we're going to be showing this interface that I've described a little bit here, this way of interacting with massive clouds of data as opposed to just one scenario at a time, so that you can see the entire space of risk at once. That's really cool because one of the main problems that AV developers have had is they play whack-a-mole. They solve one problem and then other problems creep up behind them. And at Move, we're going to be showing this new way of solving and continuously improving over all the problems at once on this kind of Milky Way full of all the risks that an AV can see all at once on the screen.
Oh, very exciting. Well, I look forward to seeing dRISK there. And thank you so much for chatting with us today. It's been a really great conversation. Thanks, Tess.
Cheers. Nice to talk. Thanks, Grace.